Welcome to the Christian Life Coach Collective. I'm your host, Laura Malone, and you are in the right place if you want to make an impact in your life and the lives of the people around you. Maybe you even want to turn your gift of helping others into an income so you can support your family and your dreams and make a way for your calling. I'm here to guide you because you deserve to have encouragement and resources and somebody invested in you as you go invest yourself into everyone else. Let's dive into today's episode. Hi there. Today I'm talking about another assessment that I think is really valuable when you look at evaluating your personality, your strengths, who you are, like just the inner characteristics and parts of your identity that it can be identified, and not for the sake of a label, but for the sake of identification unto leveraging this information. So Brené Brown is one of my favorite researchers in the emotional and personal growth space, and I love what she shares about vulnerability and shame and so many different things. And I've read a lot of her books. I have listened to a lot of her TED Talks. You can glean so much from all of her books and her talks and all of the things she puts out there. But as I say with every person or resource that I recommend, learn how to spit out the bones for yourself. So I'm not making guarantees that you're going to love every book that she's written or something. I always say sometimes a book is like a nice piece of Chilean sea bass at like an expensive restaurant. And you can eat the whole thing without any problems, and it's really delicious. But sometimes a book is like a cut of salmon from the grocery store, and you find 3 or 4 or 10 bones while you're eating. So sometimes you start reading and you find out the book contains a whole skeleton of a fish that's more fitting for like Garfield. So with all of these assessments, the links, and the people I talk about here on the podcast, I just always say that you should expect a bone here or there that you don't agree with. You're going to find bones on this show because you and I are never going to see 100% the same, like eye to eye, all of the time, because we're not going to. That's just not human life, right? But it doesn't mean we can't glean from each other. So Brené Brown has a few books like Braving the Wilderness, Rising Strong, Dare to Lead, and some other ones. But the Dare to Lead book has a workbook and also a free assessment that comes alongside it. I want to share this with you because as a leader in multiple spaces in my life and over the past 20 years, I really appreciate some of the things that she goes into when it comes to being a leader, whether you are a leader at work or at church or whatever, something at school, even just being a leader at home with the people who live in your home. Everybody's a leader in some area of their life. Most leadership assessments come at leadership and growth from a far different perspective than what Brené Brown and the Daring Leadership Assessment does. So this assessment evaluates strengths and opportunities, which every good assessment does, but she comes at it with what she calls the 4 courage-building skill sets. I don't know about you, but I think we can all use some courage-building skills. And with this assessment, it was a short one, like it's less than 5 minutes, I think, and it's geared towards the workplace and its language, but I believe it fully applies to inside your home, like I said, at church, wherever you're connecting with people. And I'm actually going just to read my results so you can get an idea of what each of the courage building skills are. And then if you want, you can go get the book, Dare to Lead, get the workbook. You can go through the free assessment for yourself for the greatest impact to you. And you can use that free assessment for any client work that you have. If you're a coach, you would be able to just point them in this direction and use some of this if they're looking at how they can grow in these 4 courage building skill sets, even if they're not looking at it from a leadership standpoint. Based on my answers, My results say I have both strengths and opportunities for growth in all 4 areas, which is not surprising. I would be surprised if it were to tell me I'm scoring 8 and above out of 10 in any one of these areas, as to say like, wow, you're just really strong and you just got this, girl. Good job. So rumbling with vulnerability is the first one that comes up. And that's why I like it. There's, again, it's just not your average leadership assessment, because she studies these other things that are deeper within us that impact our leadership in any area of life. And vulnerability is one of them, because it's not a thing that gets studied. It's not a thing that gets taught. And I want to help you embody that and understand vulnerability in your own life. And then if you're a coach, I want you to be able to understand how the levels of vulnerability for your clients impact the kind of results they're getting. So rumbling with vulnerability is about staying brave, curious, and learning, right? Which to me sounds like I'm a coaching client. Brave, curious, and growing, right? So vulnerability is the emotion we experience when there's uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So it's having the courage to fully show up, fully engage, and be seen, even though you can't control the outcome. Now, I'm not reading this verbatim, but this is basically everything that my results actually show. And so this is the same information you can find if you take the free assessment. So the willingness and ability to rumble with vulnerability, it makes me think of like Jacob wrestling the angel. It's the foundational skill of the courage building. Without this core skill, it says that the other 3 skill sets are really impossible to operate in. So our ability to be daring leaders will never be greater than our capacity for vulnerability. And honestly, after 2 decades in ministry and nonprofit work and leadership, I completely agree. If there's no vulnerability, then I think great leadership is not possible. And most of us aren't taught about vulnerability or told that it's courageous to be vulnerable. So the first thing we have to do is deal with the lie and the limiting belief that vulnerability is not a good characteristic. And the lie that we could just ignore vulnerability, or we can, like the results say, I like the way it says this, engineer the uncertainty and discomfort out of vulnerability. Or the lie that vulnerability is a weakness rather than a strength. And the second step in developing the skills and grounded confidence to stay in vulnerability when it feels overwhelming. Like it says, many of us avoid vulnerable situations, we armor up for them, or we completely tap out when it gets too uncomfortable or awkward. So building grounded confidence means developing all of the skills and practices. Again, you can go read Dare to Lead, and all of this is really covered and they dive deep into it there. So the second courage building skill is living into your values, which is definitely something I believe in coaching. We talk about with clients, we talk about what are your core values, but living in your values, it means you have to get clear on what you really value and the behaviors that support those values. So a value is a way of being or believing that we hold most important. So living into your values requires a clear understanding of core values, having a strong sense of the behaviors that are in alignment with those values, which is something that is really part of the Pearl practice. Understanding, like, if my values are part of the legacy I want to create, then I need to know what kind of results culminate in that legacy, and I need to know what actions, the behaviors I need to bring on a daily basis to get those results to create that legacy are. So then recognizing when your behavior is out of alignment with that and course correcting as needed. So there's kind of phases of that. First, you have to know the core values. You have to understand what kind of behaviors need to be in your life to be in alignment with those values. You need to be able to be a good self-observer, be a watcher of yourself, and see when your actions are out of alignment with getting the results of those core values, and then learning how you individually can correct your course and change your actions and your behavior. It says when we are vulnerable, we will face self-doubt, hurtful comments, and fear. Our clarity of values is the essential support during these difficult times. And if we don't have values to remind us why we are being courageous, your solid reason why, okay, then the cynics and the critics will bring us to our knees. So living into our values means we do more than profess them, we practice them. We walk our talk, we're clear about what we believe and hold important. We take care that our intentions, words, thoughts, and behaviors align with those beliefs. Sounds like a lot of the Pearl practice to me. The next one is braving trust. So in addition to the Daring Leadership Assessment, she's got what is called the Braving Inventory download. And you can just, again, same place, the website, the link will be in the show notes. You can go there and download this inventory. But basically, trust is built in little ways over time. And it's built between a couple of people or in a team based on the 7 specific areas in the Braving Inventory, which is based on the acronym BRAVING, which stands for boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. So I'm going to go through each one of those. And first, understand we're struggling with trust. And when we struggle with trust and don't have the tools or skills to talk about it, because who teaches you the skills to deal with, I don't trust you. So then we end up talking about people instead of to the people. And we can think about, what does the Bible tell us about that? Go to the one that you have an issue with. Don't go to somebody else. There's a whole process the Bible lays out. Second, trust is the glue that holds teams and organizations together. So when we ignore trust issues at the expense of our own performance, we affect the team, we affect the organization, we affect our family, we affect our household, we affect our neighborhood, we affect our church, and so on and so forth. So anyway, this inventory is like how we talk about values, and it's a relational process that if you were to go through this inventory and go through it with somebody else important to you in your life or people and the members of your team, then when you work through it together in a safe space, it can be really transformative. And boundaries, basically it's setting boundaries, is making clear what's okay, what's not okay, and why. And I'm going to say, I don't know, we didn't do premarital counseling. We should have. Everybody should, I think. And then just stick with it in present marital counseling forever. But understanding what your boundaries are, and I think when you get married, you don't know a lot of times, especially if you get married younger, you're not clear what your boundaries are. And it's really important to decide what they are and then make clear what is okay inside of this boundary, what needs to stay outside of the boundary, and have a solid reason why. R in braving is reliability. It means you do what you say you'll do. I'm going to point out that I think this doesn't just include doing what you're going to say you'll do for others, but doing what you'll say you'll do for yourself. Having integrity and making a commitment to yourself and following through. So in a team, at work, at home, it means staying aware of what you're capable of, what you're limited at, so you don't overpromise, and you're always able to deliver on whatever you've committed to and balance competing priorities. And again, I think this totally applies in a household and a family. A in braving is accountability. So you own your mistakes, you apologize, and you make amends. And just on the point of apologize, we're going to talk about in a different episode, we're going to talk about the 5 love language assessment. And that actually has an assessment for your apology language. Yes, apology language. The V in braving stands for vault. It means you don't share information or experiences or say things that are not yours to share. So everybody needs to know that if they share something in confidence with you, you would keep it. And you're not going to share with them information about other people that should be confidential. And I think that's really, really important, especially in a team, a family, and a marriage. I is for integrity, choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and practicing your values, not just professing them. Non-judgment is the N, means I can ask for what I need, and you can ask for what you need, and we can talk about how we feel without judgment. This creates a space where you can be honest. All of these things apply to who you should be as a coach. G is for generosity. Extending the most generous interpretation to the intentions, words, and actions of others. Assume the best positive intent. And you can see right here, it's one of the reasons I really love this is because if you've listened, you understand I have a severe interest in the difference between interpretation and intention and believing the best about people and trying to shift my paradigm on a consistent basis to believing the best instead of operating from the worst interpretation, which, it's really easy for our souls to want to go with the thing that makes us feel justified about being angry or saying what we said or whatever it is. And when we can shift our paradigm to believing, okay, what if they didn't mean it that way? We can get different fruit for our lives. And then the last of the 4 courage building skills is called learning to rise. This is learning how to reset after you've been disappointed or you failed or you had a setback. It is crucial in a changing environment. And I would say that happens at work. Work environments are generally changing rapidly in the kind of culture that we live in today with technology and shifts and whether you're going to work from home or not, whether you have a job or not. But also households and families are rapidly changing environments, so it really applies. But digging into this process and figuring out how to build this skill is about getting up from the fall and overcoming mistakes and facing setbacks in a way that bring more learning and strength. So when we have the courage to walk into the hard experience of failure and disappointment and own those stories, we get to write the ending. And you know how I feel about being a story maker. So if we don't own our stories of failure, setbacks, and hurt, they own us. Okay, then she goes on and it says, our research shows that leaders who are trained in rising skills as part of a courage building program are more likely to engage in courageous behaviors because they know how to get back up after taking risks and being brave. So the learning to rise process involves learning from setbacks and disappointments and applying learning to future situation from whatever you failed at. You just learn from it. And that's that part where we talk about, I talk about confidence and just the willingness to show up and try and fail and try again. So the mistakes, failures, setbacks, they provide key moments of things that we can learn, that we can use for our own future story, but we have to be brave enough to own that story. So good. I'm just going to recap. Okay, rumbling with vulnerability. Stay brave, stay curious, keep learning. Live into your values. So get clear on what are your values and have a sense of what you need to do and how you need to act to be in alignment with them. Learn to see when you're out of alignment with those and learn how to course correct. Braving trust. And braving stands for boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. And then learning to rise. After you have fallen, get back up. All right. I love this. I think I can think of 1,000 different ways that this can be implemented and useful in coaching and in your own personal self-coaching. So check the show notes, go to the links, take this assessment and see how can this shift for you? How can you learn to rise and to rumble and to lean in and to bravely trust? How can you grow in these areas? Because whatever you're walking in, you're setting an example to all of the people around you that you're leading, even the ones you don't know you're leading, but they believe they're watching and they're hearing and they are following what you're doing, at least by watching and hearing. So they're learning from you. And you may not know because you may not intentionally be leading people, but that's exactly what we're doing. People are watching us. They're being influenced by who we are and the examples that we set. So decide what you want your legacy to be, the kind of results that you need to get to have that legacy, and then decide how you need to act and feel and think to walk out those results so that you create a legacy so you can impact the world around you in whatever way you are uniquely created by God and called to do. Have a great day, friend. If you'd like to work with me and get coaching, become a coach, or start a coaching business, check out all the courses and coaching I offer at sterlingandstonementoring.com, or you can scroll through the show notes to find all the links that you need. I pray that your day will be full of joy, hope, transformation, and the presence of God.